What is up, people? You ready for my cock? The long and short of it? Just kidding. We're reading Noirlem, The Long and Short of It by Joshua Plack, my boy. If you want to check out anything else he has, look in the description below and you'll find it there. Let's go. People are jamming out at this party, alright? Music's blasting, things are cooking, but Coleman, our main protagonist here, doesn't give a flying fuck. He has shit to do. You see, there's a dead body in one of the bathrooms. But when the officers arrive, he tells them they can forget heroin, if that's what they were thinking. If they were thinking at all. He talks to this old geezer Cheryl, but she's just kind of being a bitch. A student named George comes in, and Coleman lets him slide because he knows he's sick. After Coleman lectures a class, he tells Cheryl she should lay off the cheeseburgers. She says, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, just kidding." Then he goes on to be in his own classroom and listen to that lecture. And after he sits outside thinking to himself, and children come out disrupting him, but he doesn't mind because he views them as eager minds ready to learn. One of the police officers comes in that was investigating the bathroom man's death, and he wonders, how did it happen? In summary, the needle fell off a cabinet, landed in a dude's leg, and injected him. And the cop is relieved at first. He's like, "Wow, thank God it wasn't a murderer." And Coleman's like, "Bro, you're still framing this guy as a heroin addict. Go tell the people the truth." And when the cop leaves, everyone watches. Then we swap to a woman having a peaceful stroll down the dock, and she gets shot by a man in a trench coat. An Officer Baldwin is sent to investigate this woman's death. Baldwin is the guy who talked to Coleman earlier, and he's clearly affected by this conversation because when his chief is like, "Damn, who cares? We're not going to be able to find who killed her anyway, so don't worry about it," he's a little upset about this. Baldwin obviously wants to continue the investigation, but his sergeant doesn't want to. And he's saying, "Hey, just know you haven't gotten that gold badge yet." So he's using it against him. He kind of just wants to sweep it under the rug and not deal with the headache. Coleman comes in to tell Baldwin he respects what he's doing and he thanks him for it. They go to get some grub together, and Coleman takes him to a black and tan restaurant so he doesn't get stabbed in the back while eating. But Baldwin pulls out some files, and by looking at the files, they realize that there's a pattern to these murders. They are learning more and more things about this killer. The type of gun he used, the fact that he's learning to pick up cartridges, so he's not leaving any tracks behind. And now, since they've wasted so much time, they only have 4 days left before he strikes again. Because remember, he's killing on a pattern here. Coleman goes to the alley where one of the women were murdered, and he really tries to put himself in her shoes so that they can figure this out. They realize that if she was fleeing the alley to not get shot, why would she turn back just to get shot again? And they know her husband was there as well. So they go to investigate the husband. The husband seems absolutely destroyed about his loss. But when Coleman walks up, he says, "I didn't know they hired the..." Whoa, hey now! Coleman obviously isn't having any of that racist bullshit. So he goes out to investigate another place, learns some more new info, but he's followed by Jay. And it's with black folks, so he has to act different around them, you know? So when Jay, approaches them, he's like, "Yo, I'm a police officer," and Coleman decks his ass. Pretty much telling him that we live in two different worlds, and you can't just interrupt mine. Coleman says that the people he talked to saw a man in a heavy coat and a hat with a funny walk. So with that information, he's gonna let his thoughts simmer. After taking a short break, they realize that they're super tired, but it doesn't matter, they gotta keep going. So they push further, investigating the streets, murder sites, knocking on doors. Coleman even comes up with the idea that they could be getting the days of the killings wrong, because there could be a body they don't know about. But after, Coleman continues his life, teaching is normal, and he tells them about Beowulf, and how the story is about greatness, but how greatness comes with a cost. Baldwin comes in, revealing that he was taken off of the case because the cops caught him and they made too much noise. He books it out of the classroom and waits for Miss Fisher, because he knows she killed those women. Yeah, she ain't no ordinary hair sweeper. She's also sweeping bodies. If you guys remember, when they were investigating Dorothy's body, they noticed that she turned back before she fully left the alley, and they were wondering why she did that. Well, she did it because she recognized Mrs. Fisher's voice. So Mrs. Fisher shot her ass, and then she ran off because of the sound of the gunshot. Of course, she calls him ridiculous and says that these claims are insane. Why would I do such a thing just to sell more haircuts? But Coleman says that people have done a lot worse for a lot less. And he also matched up the .38 caliber shells to her gun that she's definitely holding in her coat right now. And he tells her to hand it over. Bad idea, my man. So she pulls out the fucking strap, ready to blow his ass away. But she gets thumped in the arm by a baton, luckily not shooting Coleman. Mrs. Fisher laughs because she knows if Coleman goes in with Baldwin and they bring this case to the people, then she won't be charged for anything. So Coleman decides to leave. Even though Mrs. Fisher's put away and they solved the case, Baldwin still feels like he did this in a dirty way. And Coleman says, hey, you're not the first dirty cop, bro. Chill out, you should feel pride. Baldwin is still confused about the funny walk thing though. And Coleman tells him that a woman has a different way of walking and that Mrs. Fisher had her own swagger. So she was doing the fucking GTA San Andreas walk up in here. Baldwin asks him to join the force, but Coleman says no. I got my own plans, and he gives him a business card, showing him that he's going to be a detective for hire. And Baldwin says, well, probably gonna need this shit. And that, my friends, wraps up Noirlem. Like the video if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't enjoy the video, don't be a pussy. Like the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.